Alright, so we're going to have a fun video today. Basically, we're going to see if in one video we can script out some boss behavior that'll be kind of Zelda-like, 2D Zelda-like anyways. First in this video, I'm going to sort of go over what I've already done, and then I'm going to go over what I'm kind of not going to do, and then we'll get started. So what I've already done is really basic. All it is a little game where I can move around. The boss does nothing yet because we have not scripted his behavior. Now, so I'll show you all the classes. So all I did to the main game class, this is just a basic LibGdx project. This was my first class it generated for me, along with the desktop launcher class. And all I did was make this extend game, got the sprite batch, made a new screen, which you can see here, set the screen to be that, and it was ready to go. All I did in the launcher here, colors are kind of weird there, is set it to be 640 by 480 if you want to copy my screen size. All I did in the game screen is create a new instance of the player, a new instance of the boss, and set them to update and set them to render. The player is really simple. He just draws himself to the screen with the render, and in the update, all he does is use some input handling from LibGdx, really simple, to get input. He has a position which we can get with this method here, and the boss is going to need to get it, right? All I've done with the entity interface here is have a render and update. This is just kind of habit for me, you know, for bigger games. I made a fireball class here. Haven't done anything with it yet. We will do something with it in a little bit, as long as we don't run out of time. Cool. So with the boss, he has a position, he has a texture, he keeps track of the player. Obviously, the boss needs to know about the player. If he's going to react to him, he's going to make decisions based on the player, stuff like that. And we have a constructor here. I think I'm going to go ahead and make an initialize method. So that my constructor doesn't bloat too much. I'm not really going for super clean code today. I'm just going to have a little bit of fun. So something I'm not going to cover today is like collisions. We're not going to script out a full fight. We're not going to have time in this video to sort of actually have the player have an attack animation and a sort of collision box to collide with the boss and actually fight him, all of that good stuff. I can maybe do that in a future video if somebody really wants me to, but that's not something I'm going to be doing today. I also didn't draw a background for this video. You can just imagine this is the boss room. But anyways, all we're doing today is scripting boss behavior, and that's going to be enough for one video. I can't promise that this is going to be super sophisticated. I'm just going to go in and do some stuff, and it'll be kind of cool. By the end, we'll have a boss moving around and doing some things. I'm hoping it looks kind of like a sort of Zelda boss here. So how are we going to do this? Well, I'm thinking that we're going to do it based on states. Now, you've probably heard of the state machine before, and some of you have probably done way better ones than what I'm about to do, if this can even be considered a state machine. I actually don't know much about them myself, but we're going to do things based on states here today. So regardless of whether you think what I do is a good idea, I hope you can at least maybe learn something from it. And if you've never worked with something like enums, you know, now's a good time to learn about them. You know, enums just make your code cleaner. You could have like a public int telly that equals 1, like a public static final int telly that equals 1, but why when you can just have this state enumeration where it's just telly, right? And it's nice and semantic, and you can sort of have clean, readable code. That's always the goal, even though I just said the goal isn't today to have great code. But what I really meant by that is code organization, because what you wouldn't actually do everything we're going to do today in a boss class, because you wouldn't want the boss class to grow to some absurd extent by the end of your game. But because we're not making this into a full game and we're just scripting boss behavior, the only two classes we're working in today are boss and fireball. That's it. We're not going to touch any other of the other classes I made, so it's going to be really simple and easy to see what was done. So in addition to the boss position, I think I want to know his size too, because we're going to do a little bit of what I like to call hack animation, and you'll see what I mean by that in a little bit. just going to be some hack animation. Cool. And we were currently just drawing our boss. I mean, if you've never worked with LibGdx much, it's really simple. It just has a sprite batch which you draw textures to the screen. And that's all we're doing today. This is the texture's position. This is the texture itself. And this is the texture size. You can see that we just have this skeleton sort of PNG in our assets folder, and we're putting it straight into our texture using the GDX files internal thing, static sort of GDX method there. Totally fine. So now we're going to do, and you know, if something libgdx specific or whatever confuses you during this video, go ahead and ask me about it in the comments, or you can Google it. libgdx has like a ton of information online. You could probably learn everything you need to know for this video in like 10-15 minutes of reading. All right, so we're going to teleport. I think for today, my boss is going to be able to teleport. He's going to be able to fire a fireball, and I think he's going to be able to charge at the player. That's the states I'm going to choose for myself to keep it simple. So what are we going to want? Well, actually, let's go ahead and do the update. I think we're going to do the update, and we're going to probably finish it immediately because the update's going to be really simple. The update is essentially going to be a switch statement based on our state. So let's go ahead and make a private state. See, this is why having an enumeration is better than having an integer, right? You just have a state, you have the enumeration at the top. Could probably be a private enumeration or whatever, but anyways, I'm going to say my default state is teleport. That seems fine. Start the fight off with a teleport. You can start it off with whatever you want. Cool, so how's this switch? So the switch statement is going to take in a state. If you've never used switch statements, well, just like with enumerations, now's a good time to learn. So what we're going to tell the switch statement is that if the state that we currently have, if that's teleport, go ahead and run a method that we're going to call tele, and then break out of the switch statement. It's all a switch statement is. It's like if statements, but a little bit cleaner. And we like clean. We'll just do fire next. Break, case, charge. All right, so based on our current state, we're going to do one of these methods. We're going to make all these methods now. Got some ideas for these methods, and some of them are going to be surprisingly simple. I think we're also going to make a default. I do not think we're going to do anything in the default, though, probably. So the default is just going to be that. And just like that, the update is done. So I think we're going to go ahead and do teleport first. Yeah, this one's going to be pretty simple, I think. So here's where the hack animation is going to come in. What I mean by hack animation, it's going to be like not a real animation. It's just going to be kind of funny one. So what we want is for the boss to disappear. Also, let's make sure that we haven't painfully broken anything. We have not, so everything's still the same. What we want is for the boss to disappear and reappear somewhere else on the map, right? That's his teleport function. That's his teleport ability. When he chooses to do it, which we will have a function public void choose state so that the boss can make a decision, and we'll fill that out in a little bit. I think that my boss is going to have a list, array list, of positions that he can warp to. I think he's going to have like a set array list of positions that he can warp to. And this can be as big or as small as you want. Import that. I'm going to say it's not going to be that big. I actually thought about these positions ahead of time. So to not waste too much time, I'm going to paste what I thought about in. I usually do a pretty good amount of thinking about the videos before I go into them because I want to minimize mistakes. You know, it's okay to wing some of it. I do not want to wing all of it because, you know, even the tiniest mistake, like you have a, you know, greater than sign is a less than sign or just something stupid like that can really slow down the video and just add minutes to it where I'm trying to find that mistake, right? So I'm trying to minimize those types of things. Now, what I've done here is really not magic. I'm just choosing new positions based on his starting location. So I'm going to say like just below his starting location is one of the possible uh, sort of things that he can teleport to. And in general, the positions I've picked are about like here, 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 and I think here. Now you can pick whatever positions you want. You can also add more than 4. That's totally fine. I think we're going to have a method that chooses a new position. Public, it's going to return a position, probably, you know, one of the ones from the list here, probably. Choose new location, we're going to call it. And this will be the location that he warps to. But first we're going to fill out Telly here. So when the choose state in fact chooses teleport, which we haven't wrote the choose state yet, but we will. What do we have to do? Well, like I said, we have to make the boss look like he's teleporting. And I don't want to deal with animations today. So we're going to do a little bit of what I like to call hack animation. We're going to go up here and we're going to make a Boolean. We're going to go ahead and set reappear to false. I personally don't know if this is a well-named variable, but if it is not time to reappear, then we need to look like we're warping, right? I'm just going to go ahead and say that we're going to do this by basically decreasing my boss's size until he is so small the player cannot see him anymore. What's cool about this is if we were doing hitboxes today, or if we do hitboxes, we could also decrease the size of the hitbox with him. So while he's teleporting, he basically becomes slightly invulnerable. Cool. So we also want an else if. So if he's not, so if he is reappearing, then he needs to become bigger, right? Because he's going to shrink until he disappears, and then he's going to reappear at the next spot by changing his location and then growing again back to his normal size. Now this comes with it a couple of complications because we don't want him to drop below 0. We also so if it's less than or equal to 0, if his x gets down less than or equal to 0, then we need to go ahead and say that it's time to reappear, right? And not only is it time to reappear, but we need to choose a new location to reappear at. Now, once he's reappeared, so his boss size, what's my current size? 40. Yeah, once his boss size, I'm sorry, I was thinking about something, is greater than, once it's greater than 40, once he's back to normal size, I don't think we want to say once it's equal to 40 because, no, that wouldn't be true, right? Because he's immediately going to come through at 39. Eh, whatever. We'll just say once he's equal to 40. We want to set him back to 40 because we want him to go back to his normal size. Oh, whoops. We're not going to do the Y. We could do both Y and X and make him shrink on the Y and X down to like nothing, but I think X is good enough to get the point across. But anyways, this is like hack animation, you know, we're technically doing animation. It's not really polished or interesting though. We also need to make reappear equals false for the next time. And then we also need to choose state. So then he's going to have to make a decision on a new state because he's done with this teleportation process. The question is, though, how do we choose a new location? Let's randomize this. So if you've never worked with Java random before, it's really easy to work with, and it's really useful. Random equals new random. Just import it from Java utilities. Nothing in the constructor. And then you can say random.nextInt. And then you can put a bound in here. I have 4 things in here, so we're going to put 4 in there, and it'll give me a number 0 through 3 because it's not inclusive with the 4. And then that'll go into my thing. Now, it's always a possibility he chooses a position that's very, very close to where he's already at, or the position that he's already at. We want to avoid that. How can we do that? For the sake of time, we're just going to do it this way. I don't think this is probably the best way to do it, but we're going to say num. So while .x. Cool. So while the position they got from this random equals the boss, we need to choose a new position, right? So basically, if the position it chose here is equal to the current position that we already have, we don't need to check the y, we can just check the x. I don't think this should be confusing to anybody. It's just, you know, the x and y coordinate plane. I think that like makes total sense. And then with boss size, the x represents width, whereas the y represents height. I don't think that should confuse anybody. But if you have any questions or anything, you know, let me know. All we're going to return is this, actually. But anyways, if it so happens that this random number is the same position that we're already at, go ahead and run this loop until the random number we got put into this this list of positions is not the position we're already at. Doesn't match the position we're already at, right? Cool. So I'm thinking... Whoa! Oh, shoot, we did not, so you do not want to do that. You do not want to have an infinite range in that or whatever it was. I think now it should be fine. Okay, yeah, he kind of chooses a random position and he teleports around. The positions aren't perfect. He obviously goes off the screen there, but you know what? It's not important today. You know what I mean? The point is we're getting some behavior in there. We might want to change this position a little bit, but cool. So right now, all he can choose to do is teleport. And teleport's done, by the way. This is totally done. You know, if it's teleport, go ahead and decrease his size. Once his size is at or equal to 0, less than or equal to 0, go ahead and choose a new location and start growing him again. Once he's at that new location, go ahead and set his location equal to the new location. So this way it hides the transfer from the player, right? He shrinks, he gets a new location without, and the player doesn't see the move. So, which is great. Games are all about creating an illusion, right? Now, obviously, if the boss had a hitbox, this would get a little bit tricky, but like I said, hitboxes are their own animal. We're not doing them today. We can do them, and it will be consistent with his code. We'll just have to write a few things in to make sure that his hitbox is not working while he's teleporting, so the player doesn't get hit by something invisible and they don't know what happened. But anyways, the code I'm writing today isn't super perfect in the way that I don't know if you could just slot it into a game, but it's definitely close. Like what I'm doing today is, I think you could probably make it work in a game with a few additions. In any case, cool. Now, how are we going to choose a state? Well, I'm going to say the default is teleport. You can choose whatever you want for the default. Whoops, it's not all caps. I'm gonna say that if the boss has nothing else to do, then he's gonna teleport. Now, when do we want him to charge? Let's decide we want him to charge. So we want him to charge. To me, for my game, I think I'm gonna want him to charge when. Give me 1 second. Something popped up on my other monitor. I think I want him to charge when the player is too far away from him. He doesn't like it when the player is too far away from him. So math that absolute value, and I'm going to say player.getPause boss pause.x. So cool. If greater than 300. So if the player is further than 300 units away, or pixels or whatever, on the X, or if the player is further than that away on the Y, then our boss is going to charge at him. Did I forget like a parentheses or something? Oh, I forgot the math.absolute value part, didn't I? That's actually pretty funny. Okay. Then I'm going to say state equals state.charge. I'm going to say our boss is going to choose to charge. So you can change his state to charge. So the next time it updates, the render loop runs, he's going to go ahead and enter the charge method. Now, I thought a little bit about how to do the charge, and I think it's going to be hilariously simple. But we need to do something up here first. So he needs to have a target to charge to, right? And I don't want want the target to be the player, because the player is going to be, the player is going to be moving, right? And I don't really want the boss to be a homing missile, so I don't want him to get updated with the player's position every single frame so that he just follows the player around. Now, if you want your boss's charge to be a homing missile for him to come right at your player no matter how your player moves, then you don't need this target. You can just use the player's position for this. You can just get the player's position from the sort of player object we have there. Cool. Also, I hope everybody understands the basics of object-oriented programming. The object-oriented programming I'm doing here is like really, really simple. You could probably learn enough to know it in like a couple days. Maybe I'm totally wrong about that. But anyways, this isn't as much a tutorial video as it is just kind of fun. But I do like it if people can learn a little bit along the way. Cool. So our target is going to be the player's position at the time that our boss decides to charge. So we're going to go ahead and set our target to be the player's position at the time player.getPause the boss decides to charge. And remember, we're just with the choose state, it only runs after a state is done. So this isn't getting updated every frame. This is going to get updated once the teleport or whatever is done, it's going to choose state, and then it's just going to be running that state. So anything you want to run once for the state, you put here. And we only want to get the target once for the state. Now, if you want to be a homing missile, you would get the target every single frame, and you would get updated on the player's position constantly. And then the boss would be really smart. Cool. So how are we going to move towards the player? Well, we're going to do some, if you've watched my Making Old School Games with Java video, we're going to take something out of that playbook. We're going to use the math.atan2 function, a little bit of trigonometry here, a little bit of the trigonometry. Now, if you've never messed with atan2, it's really not complicated. All we're going to do here is take the target's y position, which we know is our player's position at the time the boss decided to charge, and our boss y position. We're going to subtract them from each other. It's really not that dissimilar from what we're doing here to figure out if we're far enough away from our target. But anyways, and then we're going to take the target x, and our boss's X position. Once again, just basic coordinate plane stuff. And what this ATN2 function is going to get, it's going to return the angle between these two positions, right? It's going to give you the angle between the boss and the target. Now, what can we do with that? Well, we can update our boss's position based on that angle. We know what angle our boss has to travel. This kind of code is also really useful for racing games, by the way. So we know what angle the boss has to travel at. So now we just need to send him in the direction of that angle. I'm going to say his speed is 4. You can make his speed whatever you want. You can make it 100 if you want to, but just know that if you make it 100, you're never going to escape that boss. He's going to charge you and hit you every single time because 100 would be absurdly fast. Anyways, we're going to put the angle. So we're going to use cosine and sine, right? Now, cosine for the x, sine for the y. That's like, I don't even think that's trigonometry. Or no, that is trigonometry. I guess cosine and sine are trigonometry. That's just like basic geometry probably, is that coordinate planes. Anyways, cosine is the x, sine is the y. You just enter the angle in there, times it by the speed, you update the boss position. Boom, like that's it. That's the boss's, that is the boss's movement. So all we need to do now is take the same code as up here, with the modification that the player pause needs to be. I'm going to say if the boss is within 3 units of his desired target, which we need to go ahead and do. If the boss is within 3 units of his desired target, then he is done charging. You could make it more precise than that, or change up these numbers a little bit if you want. And we're just going to choose the state. And maybe he'll charge again. Maybe he'll choose this charge again, or maybe he won't. It looks like charge is the highest priority in my scheme here. Cool, so that's really it with the charge. He's going to get his target, which is the player position, when he decides to charge. And then every frame when the charge updates, he's just going to be moving towards that target by getting the angle to it. Actually, we probably only need to do this once. We could probably put this up here and then have an angle variable, but we'll just skip it for now. He's going to get the angle. Based on the angle, he's going to move towards the target by 4 units in the X and the Y. And this is going to make the movement really smooth too. So, shoot. Did I never, okay. I never actually initialized the target. See, those are those pesky mistakes I was talking about. What's the error? Oh, I put an A here. Okay. Let's see if we can get him to charge. Yeah, there we go. Then he chooses to teleport again, but once he gets far enough away from us, he's going to charge to the position we're at. And like I said, you can make him faster or slower. Hopefully we'd be hitting him here a little bit. Yeah, he's charging towards us. You can make him faster or slower. You can also make this more precise. You can have him being a homing missile if you want. It's really up to you. Cool. So he's making a decision, right? He's deciding whether he wants to charge or teleport. This is already beginning to look like a boss in a way. I wouldn't say it's a very complicated boss, but then again, Zelda bosses rarely are, right? I mean, usually Zelda bosses only have like a few attacks. You follow them around the room and you hit them when they're not attacking. But it's fun, right? Cool. Now, I don't think that we're going to do anything today as polished as old Nintendo does, but we'll do something. So when do we want our state to be fire? For me, I think I'm going to make him fire after he teleports. So I'm going to say if your previous thing was that you teleported, go ahead and fire a fireball. Now, here we go. What is our, I didn't put anything in the fireball class yet. What does it need? Well, We know it's going to need a texture. Now I'm going to make my fireball, we know it's going to need a position, and we know it's going to need a target because it's got to fly towards the player's position, right? Now I'm actually going to make my fireball a homing missile, just to demonstrate the difference between that and what we did with our boss. Public fireball, not the alcohol fireball, but a fireball that you shoot people with. Cool. I'm going to say that the boss is going to initialize the fireball's position. Pause equals pause. Very basic constructor. We're also going to make a Boolean. I'm going to say the fireball is out. This is going to be like a quick way to do a fireball. So we want t equals new texture. I already have a fireball PNG. We're going to say out is false because the fireball is not going to be fired by default. Target equals new. We want to actually initialize it this time. And I'm actually going to have a time variable. We're going to use delta on this one, I think. Private float time. And we're going to say time 0. I'm going to have it be a homing missile, but I'm only going to have it be in existence for a period of time. And then after it's been out, following the player for like 1.5 seconds or something, we're going to go ahead and say that it needs to disappear. Now, we're doing a pretty quick version of Fireball today, and some modifications might need to be made with the way we're doing it. If we add hitboxes, maybe that's for another video. I don't think there would need to be too many modifications made. I think I could make it work. But we want to draw it if it's out, right? Pause.x. And we want to draw it at this position. I think I want my fireball to be 16 by 16. That's just going to be the size of it. And it's fine. It's not a very big fireball, but I think it's, you know what, for demonstration purposes, let's make it 24 by 24. Okay, so what else does this need? It needs a public void update. It needs to update every frame. And this one actually is going to take the delta variable into it, and it's going to do something with it. So now, updates where the magic's going to happen. But what else do we want? Public void set out. So we want to be able to set out to true. The boss class is going to handle that. He's going to tell his fireball that is time to fire. Public Boolean. And we want to know what out is in any given time, probably. That seems likely. So we have a getter and setter for out. And I realize our setter isn't actually taking in false. I don't think we're ever going to have to set it false, though, because I think that's going to be done in the update method once it's done with its time. So I think we're only going to ever... Oh, sorry. It should be true. I think we're only going to ever want to set it to true. So we'll just hard code it as true. Let me see here. Cool. We want to be able to set its position. I think this might not end up being used. This is just kind of some boilerplate stuff that I think we're going to use, or we're most likely going to use, based off the idea I had for this earlier. It's always good to think a little bit about your code before you actually write it. I know a lot of people just get in there and they kind of start coding things, but it really never hurts to plan ahead of time. We want to be able to set the target, right? This dot target. So now all we have to do is update. However, we want to go ahead and make an instance of this in the boss class. Private fireball. We're just going to call it FB. Like I said, it's going to take in a position, and oops. We're going to go ahead and say, I think it's going to be new vector 2. We're just going to put a new vector 2 directly into it instead of making a vector for it. And I think it's just going to be the boss's start position, or the boss's position for simplicity. So its default position will just be the boss's default position, the exact same. Once again, I hope everybody here has some basic object-oriented programming knowledge. Anyways, cool. So I want to say fire needs delta, and then change method. And then I want to say that we're going to up all that's going to go in this fire method. Is there anything we want to do? There's nothing we want to do up here. We want it to be a homing missile, so we need to update the target. We don't want to set the target up here. We need to update the target every single time this fire method runs. So we're going to go ahead and set the target. And we're going to set it to be a new... It could be that we could just enter the player's position in here. Or we can just make a new vector 2 that copies the player position. I actually think vector 2 has a constructor where you can just put a vector 2 inside of the vector 2 and it'll copy it for you. But so we want to update the target every frame. We also want to just simply update it. We have not written the update function yet. What else do we need to do here? Well, when do we want to choose state? Okay, well, first off, the first time we come in, we have to set the fireball. So wait, what did I call that method? Oh, get out. I thought it said it is out. It's probably better off. So we're going to say if that equals false. We could just say if not, get out, but I with the exclamation point, but I prefer this because it's more explicit. So the first time we come in the method, it should be false. So we need to set it to be true. So we're going to set out, which is going to set it to be true, because we want the fireball to be out once we get in the fireball method, because it's going to be, if we didn't do this, then it would be false and the thing wouldn't run. There's probably a less convoluted way to do this. We're going to set its pause to the current boss position. We want it to appear at the boss, right? Not at the boss's starting position. So boss pause.x, boss pause.y, vector 2, not vector at. Cool. So we're going to set it to be at the boss position, and then we're going to set it to be out. Now, so now this is not going to be true anymore because it's going to be out will be true now. So this is not, it's not going to go into this if anymore. Cool. So, but if it goes into this update function, and the update function decides that it should be false, that means it's time to switch. That means it is time to choose, for the boss to make a decision to choose its new state, right? Cool. Yeah, so it's going to be set to false, and it's going to get its position, and it's going to be set to true. And then it's going to go into the update, and the update will decide whether it's done or not. And if it is done, it's going to set out to false, and then we're going to choose a new state. Yeah, perfect. And then if it's not false, if the update decides it's not done, it stays true. It'll bypass this. It'll bypass that again, and then check the update. Cool. So there will be no conflict between the two of these. It seems like we're on the right track here. Cool. This update function is going to be pretty simple. If you've never used the delta thing before, basically delta is going to give you your machine's time between frames, so you can time lock things. So, for example, if you add delta to time, when time becomes 1, that will mean 1 second has passed. According to your, I guess, computer anyways. So I'm going to say once 1.5 seconds has passed, then I want the fireball to disappear. And you can play with these numbers. I want out to be false. And remember, once out is false, we're going to choose state again, and we will no longer be firing. This will keep the boss from having like more than one fireball out at a time and stuff. Yeah. Actually, maybe I'm overcomplicating this. It doesn't matter. It's 2 in the morning. That's when I make videos, just at 2 in the morning. Okay, cool. So, cool. This is where we're going to use the angle again. So actually, let's go over to the boss. Let's get this sweet angle code, because we love trigonometry. So this is going to just become pause. We're going to be updating not the boss pause, but our pause, the fireball pause. However, target's going to stay the same because I kept that naming convention. And is our fireball going to move at 4? Sure, why not? It'll move at the same speed the boss charges. So it's going to update the position. If it in fact has been out for 1.5 seconds, this is done. I think it's just done. Let's see. Let's see how the boss acts. Whoa, where's our... Did I not? Come on, don't show me LibGdx BS. Oh, I didn't name it Fireball, I just named it Fire. That's pretty stupid. Alright, so he's going to charge, but if he's close to us when he teleports... interesting. No Fireball. The charging and the teleporting is working. Let me double check to make sure I didn't forget anything. Target. Balls. I don't think the mistake is in this class. Probably. Did I mess something up? State. Tilly, set it to fire. Let me double check. Float delta, that's the correct one. Oh, get out as false. New vector 2. Set out. You know what I'm not doing? I'm not actually rendering the fireball. Yeah, I was never actually rendering the fireball to the screen. Okay, he charges me because he's far enough away. Ah! Okay, he charges me because he's far enough away. So imagine we had hitboxes, right? Imagine my player took damage from that, had hearts on the screen. Imagine I had a sword with which to deflect the fireball and send it right back at the boss. This would be like a full fight, right? So I think with the numbers tuned correctly, we've kind of programmed a boss here. You know, the video's gone on for 45 minutes now, so I don't think we're going to do another state. You could obviously add as many states as you want. You could also change the... You could also change how the boss chooses his state and what he does. So maybe you could give higher priority to different states or something. You could make his charge really fast. There's all kinds of stuff you could do. You could make the fireball non-homing. You could also make it stay out for longer than 1.5 seconds. You can see what speed is the best. Let me know what y'all think. I think that we managed to do like kind of a 2D dungeon boss, like Zelda-like dungeon boss here. It's not like maybe as polished as it could be, but for one video, hey. Anyways, if you have any questions, go ahead and let me know. If you want the code for this, I mean, I could send you the code for it, and then you can just play around with it as much as you want. If you've never used LibGdx before, like I said, it's really simple. Just go ahead and look up how to do a starter project, and then you could just literally, once you have the starter project, you could just copy paste these classes in there, and it would work for you. It's that simple. And the assets don't really matter, right? You could have anything for your fireball, anything for your skeleton, but either way, let me know what y'all think. If y'all think this is a cool boss, or if maybe teleporting, firing, and charging just isn't really that cool, let me know what you think about, you know, hitboxes, and if you'd like to see like a full thing about hitboxes. Cool. I will see you next time.